Welcome, folks, to another brand new episode of Fitpod. And today, it's all about business. We're going to talk about international business and national business. And the guest today I have in the studio, he started his company from a loft. And I met this gentleman, an entrepreneur, at a networking event. And his story really inspired me. So I asked him to do a podcast, and he kindly accepted my invitation, and he's here with me in the studio today. So please welcome Zhagum Arshad. First of all, thank you very much, sir, for your time. I know you're a busy man. Yeah, welcome to Fitpod. We are going to talk about business, how you started. Did you have this vision of who you have become? So let's start. My first question for you is, who is Zhagum Arshad?
So look, I'm a Birmingham lad, born and bred, and so I've always been from these streets, and this is where we established business and where we've been operating for a good 25 years now, and so it's been a journey all the way through. But for me, I've always been entrepreneurial from an early age. I always looked for opportunities. I'm one of those kids at school that sold stuff, to his friends.
Oh, were you the one that had sweets in his bag and bought them for 20 pence and sold them for 50 pence?
That was one of them, right? So it's funny because so many entrepreneurs say this, that they needed to kind of just get that entrepreneurial energy out. Yeah. They needed to trade, they needed to do things. And so I was same with me. I found that that's what I was naturally inclined to do. So it was always going to be a route into business. And for me, I come from a family business, and which still exists in Birmingham today. It's called Sandal House. And so that's our family business in Alam Rock.
Okay.
So my brothers now run that, and so it was a very natural transition. I knew that this was, our parents have always been in business, and so when we were growing up, that was the route we saw that we would be taking as well. So hardly anyone in our family has ever had a job. It's always kind of go into some form of a business.
Were you ever inclined that I'll have to work in the family business, or did you think family business is great, but I want to do my own thing?
I think that for me that came later, because the first part of the journey for us as a family is the younger generation comes to help the older generation.
Yes, standard.
So we were at work after school, we were there in the holidays, we were always helping out. So you knew the business already, you knew the staff, you knew the customers, you kind of were quite ingrained already. So that was a natural transition. You would just naturally do that. But then starting your own thing then comes later, because then you look for new opportunities, what you could get into next, what you could expand into. So we explore, new horizons as things go along. And even to this day, there's always something new happening, something new that you're exploring.
So when did you start your first ever business?
My own business, which I still run today, Loft 25, we started in 2008.
2008.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that, because that's the business you spoke about at the event. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very interesting, because I know a lot of people who work from home, who do their businesses. How did you start that? What made you start that? And how did you grow it? Because then we'll talk about your manufacturing plants in Pakistan, and then how did that all come about? Well, you could have stuck to that's enough for me now. So what was the vision?
I think early on you try and look after your family, so you kind of want a business that will provide a better life, a better income, and I think that's what you initially you think. And I was the same, and I chased that for a long time. We started a business from the loft of our house, which was hence the name of the company. And so we just sold on eBay. It was
a 25 door number?
That's it. Yeah, so Loft 25, and it was bedding and textiles, and we were just buying from warehouses and selling it from the loft, and it did quite well, quite quickly. And so we thought, okay, we'll get a little unit. So we got a small room somewhere, and that was just stacked to the ceiling with duvet covers everywhere. And then very quickly within, we're talking like sort of, it was every 2 months, we were like, okay, we've outgrown this now. We need a bigger place. So we'd go and get next door, and then we'd get another one. Then we need a proper unit. We'd get a 1,000 square foot unit. And then, 6 months in, we'd take next door, and then we'd be like, okay, no, this still isn't enough. We need a bigger building. So we were moving, in the first 2-3 years, we moved like 10 times. It was just like constant move to bigger and bigger premises. As we were discovering new stuff, because I was very experimental, so I'd just go out and look and see, okay, there's an opportunity for this. Because a lot of things weren't online yet. We're talking the days when, the internet was just really taking off. Yeah. So there'd be all sorts of, products that you could introduce. And so the range kept growing. We were doing
2008.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a long time. I just realized how...
Yeah.
I left uni in 2006, 2007.
Yeah. So so very early days of that. But actually, my first internet business was with my best friend Ash Ali, and so we made a shoes website in 1998, and it was called shoeimage.com, and we were selling shoes around the world. In 1998.
So how old were you back then?
I was 18 then, and so. I was just going to uni, and he was working out of his bedroom, just being very innovative. And he built the site. I brought in the products, and we were sending them out. We were selling like men's shoes to Japan and all sorts. And all sorts of stuff was going on. We were older than Google. I remember when Google came out, we were like, wow, this is a nice new search engine. It's like much faster than Yahoo and all this kind of stuff. So we were old in that kind of internet business.
Yeah.
But then when I took over the family business, I just stopped. I thought, I don't want to run this online stuff. There was a lot of card fraud and stuff that used to happen. So I used to lose money here and there. And so I thought, let's leave it. I can't be bothered with this. Big mistake. I should have continued with it.
Can you imagine now?
But yeah, I imagine
Shoe Image is a nice name as well.
Yeah, no, it was ranked very highly because we were very early. Yeah. And so I'd gone away from that internet business. When I came back into it, 2008 with Textiles, it was just like very organic growth. We wanted to grow from the profits of the company constantly. We started the company with very little money. We're talking like £200, and just bought some stock, sold it again and again and again. And we started to build this up. And so very quickly I realized I need to run this thing full time.
But
the textiles company.
Yeah.
So Loft 25 was taking up a lot of my time and effort. So I thought, I've got to exit the shoe business. My brothers were just joining at that time. So I said, well, okay, they can take over now, and I'm going to go and run this. So went and did that, and went into manufacturing from there. So we thought so many people were now coming online by 2011, 12. Lots of people were online. Profit margins weren't what they used to be. So we thought, let's manufacture. So I had that manufacturing again in my blood because my father had been manufacturing shoes. So I understood the industry. I'd been running it. So I went into textiles manufacturing. So at one point we had 4 sites in Birmingham. We had about 100 sewing machinists making all sorts of bean bags and, cushions and garden products and all sorts. And so eventually by 2016, I thought I should move this to Pakistan. So I took the whole manufacturing operation and set it up in our hometown in Pakistan, near Faisalabad. It's called Gojra. And so we set it up there. Again, with that mindset, and we were talking about this earlier, that we were brought up with a mindset of try to help Pakistan in some way.
Yeah.
And so that was part of us. We always looked for how could we do something. And every Pakistani I meet, and people from every country, I think, have that still affinity to how could I help the people still back there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that too, and I was like, I'm going to set up the manufacturing, and we did. And we employed quite a lot of people out there. But after running that a few years, and they supply our warehouses in the UK and now the Netherlands as well, I always felt there was something missing. So when you talk about vision, for me, the vision was, how do you better people's lives? And by giving them some income, which I had done with manufacturing, that was only one thing. I thought that's not the end for me. That's not I haven't changed their lives. I've given them an alternative source of income. They can work for my manufacturing. But what will change their generations? It has to be something more than this. They've got to gain tech skills in today's modern world. You can work from anywhere. After COVID, when everybody started working remotely, you could work from anywhere in the world and earn a UK income. People were doing it. Like so many of our friends were working from, different cities in the world, Dubai especially, and just, earning the wage here.
Yeah.
So why can't you do that from Pakistan? And so I thought, well, if you give them the right skills that businesses need, you can do that. And that's where, my next phase of my journey really came in, where we set up, academies to do that. So the academies train people in how to do tech work. And we then hire out teams of people to companies in the UK, the US, Canada, a lot of European countries. And so that's created now jobs like at a much bigger scale, but those are life-changing jobs.
Yeah.
They will now be, run through, those families will now teach their kids the same things, because, you've got, imagine having a techie in the family.
Yeah. It's changed the whole mindset of someone.
It does.
Rather than them just believing that this is life, slave labor or whatever it is, and they just got to do labor work, go out there, work on pennies, and that it takes time. But one step at a time. And what you've started, because that Loft 25 is not the only thing that you have. I was looking at through your LinkedIn last night, and mashallah, there's a whole list of different companies that you're part of.
Yeah.
And just a touch up on that, how and why, you've got textiles, there's tech companies, there's this another something else, there's loads of them. I can't even remember now.
There's constant advancement needed.
Yeah.
So I'm not someone that wants to be stale in what I do. So I've, over the course of my business career, I've done retail, wholesale, manufacturing, e-commerce, and then I wanted to now evolve further to like, what else is there that I haven't explored? So I hadn't done much that was business to business, in the tech context especially. So the Cloud Search that I co-founded with Ilyas Khan, is also from Birmingham. And, that's our tech company that supplies tech resources to companies here. So that was that was a learning curve. Like, I'm a technophobe in that sense, right? I have to call someone to the office to help me print something out. I'm one of those kind of people, right? So I've had to now, be, co-founding a tech company, I had to learn.
Guys,
really
how do
quickly.
I print this?
Yeah. So, and sometimes I have to hide the fact that, like, I don't really know. I'm not like, comfortable with all this stuff. But you learn, it's business, the concepts at their core are the same.
Yeah.
You've got to serve customers well. You've got to, be good to people. You've always got to be fair. Never, don't ever do anyone over. All of these kind of principles transcend any type of business. You take that good practice with you. So you go into a new industry and you get accepted very quickly into that space, provided you're innovative, you learn quick, you're good to people.
Do you reckon being accepted in different parts of sectors, in different businesses, it comes down to yourself and how you are as a human?
Definitely. Look, values are really important here. And there's ups and downs in business all the time.
Yeah.
And when you're like a riba free business, like we've been on that journey, and it's much harder. You can't just go to a bank and get an overdraft or a loan, or you run out of money, you've run out of money. It's literally you're on your own steam. So when a business is growing, you run out of money all the time because you've got growth going on, right? So you often have to then rely on goodwill of the industry and your suppliers in particular to carry you through it. And there's nothing much in it for them really, but they'll support you if you're good to them in the good times, and that you're always fair. And so I've been lucky to have that from Muslims and non-Muslims. I've always had this thing where they'll support me through thick and thin. And I'm often, pinch myself sometimes on some of the things, deals we've done, where they'll just back me. And I'll be like, I'm very true to my values. I say, look, this is who I am. There's no way I'm going to a bank for a loan. This isn't happening. If I owe somebody money, they'll often give me really extended terms, like, don't worry about it. Take 2 years to pay us. Which is unheard of, right? That's not anyone's terms. They would take you to court within 30 days, right? But but I've never had that kind of a problem where, we deal with good people and you be good to them. They're good to you. to this day where I can just ask for, containers of textiles to be sent from China to Pakistan. No one asks me to pay. They will be
That's
like,
nice.
right, send it over.
Next time I'll ask you to ask them for me.
It's just about people know your heart.
Yeah.
That you're not the kind of person that would ever do anything, to them. Even if it took you years to repay them, you would repay them. People sense that, I think, in their dealings with you. So when you go into a new industry, you've got to carry those values across.
Yeah.
And so you go in, you're very, like in Cloud Search, for example, we've set many people up with their own company, but backed by our resources out in Pakistan. And many of them are like, why are you helping me? Like, what's in it for you? I don't quite get it. Like, why are you going to all this effort?
Because people would want a percentage. If they're going to give you their resources, first thing they would say is, okay, what's the percentage for me in that business? Because I am doing X, Y, and Z.
And this is where for the mindset that we have to adopt is your percentage is with Allah in what you do. If you adopt that and you believe that, you'll help everyone, and you don't worry about your end. You don't think, well, what am I going to get? I don't think that when I deal with people, that, okay, what's my bit going to be? How do I insert my percentage into this, or how do I eat from this? I just don't worry about that. I just look at, okay, this person's in front of me. They want to set up a business, or they need to expand their business, or they need help in their business. So you give it. And then they're like, okay, I don't quite get why you're being so helpful to me, because they're not used to it.
Yeah.
But as a Muslim community as well, that we need to be doing more of that. We need to be giving each other a hand up, not closing the door behind us and saying, well, I've made it, see you later.
Yeah. Do you think that, I say this to everyone, that is one of a big problems in our community here and abroad.
I honestly think that it's on the mend. I reckon that we're fixing this now, because the circles I move around in are lots of people who are helpful, who help others with every breath. They're always out there doing good. That's who I mix with. I can't really get on with the kind of business people that are all about them and just about them making more money. Money doesn't interest me. It's just like it's a byproduct of doing good work.
It comes and goes, doesn't it?
And a lot of people say this, but like, what does it mean? Is that you don't measure things by how much money they make. I meet people who make 10 times, 100 times more money than I do, but I don't feel any kind of like, oh well, I need to be like them, because you've got to be comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah,
you've got to know who you are, and you're out to do good. What do you want from this life? You want to please your creator. You want to go to Jannah. You don't get that from having loads of money and dying rich. That's not what achieves it. But money is a means to an end. If you can do good with it, great. But then I know people who think that they're doing good and that they're trying to make money so that they can do good with it and get lost on the path.
True.
Where they just start becoming all, really money orientated, and will do anyone over, cut corners. They'll, scam people even, and not realize that, like, why did I start this thing in the first place? If your risk is fixed, and I say this a lot, that like, look, if your risk is fixed, nobody can add a penny to it, and nobody can take a penny away from it.
Yeah.
So what are you worried about? Like, why do anyone over? Why be, so ruthless in business? You can be kind, you can be, friendly to your team members, to your colleagues, and even your rivals. Yeah. Sometimes I'll ring up a company that's come into our industry and say, congratulations, welcome to the industry. If I can ever help you with anything, let me know. And they're like, I don't get it. Like, why are you calling me again? Like, we're competitors. And I'm like, no, we're not. You're not going to take anything of mine. You can't.
Yeah.
What could you do if you took all my business away from me? Then it wasn't mine, was it? It wasn't meant to be mine.
True.
So why am I?
See, that's a very different way to look at it.
It's an abundance mindset, an Islamic abundance mindset, let's say, right? So a lot of people have the abundance mindset, or claim to have it, let's say, but put it to the test. And I often like to do that and say, okay, really, if I open up next door to you, how are you going to feel about it? So in the Muslim world, you have a whole bazaar of shops that are selling the same thing.
Very true.
and they all get on, they're all friends. So when you meet these people, they'll be like, go to my neighbor, he's got it. And some of them, I've heard stories where people close their shop because they've made enough money for the day, let the other guys make something. And so they had that collegiate kind of atmosphere with each other, which we are not taught that here in the West. We learn to be very cutthroat. Somebody opens a business on your street that's remotely competitive with you, and you hate them. You're not supposed to like them. You don't talk to them. Have animosity with them because you view it as a limited cake that you've all got to take a slice from. But the Islamic mindset is Allah's given a decree of how much rizq you're going to earn in your life. So you're just obtaining it. You're building the channels to let it flow to you. So you dig the channel and eventually that water flows towards you, right? So that's what you're trying to do with your business and your career. But then why do I need to block yours off? Because Allah's told me I'm gonna. You're
gonna get 10 liters of water, and that's it.
That's it, right? So I was talking to a very interesting guy from Leicester a few days ago, and he was mentioning that he said, "Do you employ more people today than 10 years ago?" And I said, "Yeah, a lot more." And he said, "Yeah, so do I." But he said, "Is your lifestyle about the same as it was 10 years ago?" And I said, "Pretty much." Exactly the same.
So is mine.
Yeah.
Like mine.
Yeah. So interesting, right? That you've got much more business and probably much more, wealth around you, but it's not yours.
100%.
So what you spend on yourself is what you consume is your rizq. Your rizq is not your bank balance. You can have millions in the bank, but don't actually get to enjoy any of it. There are many people like that, right? That I've observed over the years. They have a lot of money, but they don't get to enjoy any of it, because their rizq part of it is limited. So this guy says that you employ more people, that's a privilege. That's a blessing from Allah that you get to employ them and pay them. That's their rizq.
Yeah.
It's not yours.
Through you. Yeah.
Yours is on about the same scale as it was, in previous years. It just kind of continues. You wear the same kind of clothes, you eat the same kind of food, you take the same kind of holidays. It's about the same. You're not going to suddenly, get private jets and start going, well, at least for me, right? That's not what I'm going to be doing. I don't know about you.
That was my next question. How many jets have you got?
Well, I'm waiting for an invite to yours yet. But so
it's going to be, you got to wait a very long time.
So I think that we claim abundance, but we don't live it. And if we start living it as a community, and it's one of the things that I discovered, as I started to grow in business, was anyone could come to me and ask for help or ask for advice, and my door was always open. And I felt happy that day when I went home that I'd advised someone, helped someone. So were other people thinking like this? And actually they are. We just don't ask. So when we see somebody who's successful, and there are, just in Birmingham, there are some, some brothers who are doing really well. But do we go to them and say, you can't do everything that's coming across your desk, can you? You can't cope. We know this in business. Opportunities are coming in too fast. We can't pick all of them. So we select one or two and say, okay, I can do this one. What happens to the rest? Well, who comes to you and says, I'm available, I'd like to do something. Are there any opportunities you think I should explore? Yeah. No one asks you that. Instead, there's just jealousy and kind of bitter hatred of like, this person's made it. But instead of thinking like that, turn up and say, look, you obviously can't do everything that's available to you. Let me do something. I'm willing and able. That's, I think, adopting abundance in our mindset.
After this conversation, do you think that Western style of business and Islamic style of business can ever integrate?
I think that you can adopt technology.
Yeah.
Management practices.
I mean, like not the technology or that aspect of it, the moral side of aspect.
Well, that's definitely at odds with each other, right? So you're gonna have that conflict.
Yeah.
And and I was having this discussion with someone recently who was like, look, Muslims and British society is gonna clash inevitably. There's gonna be a clash, and it's gonna be really bad. And I was like, yeah, I agree with you. And he wasn't expecting me to say that, but I was like, yeah, I agree. There will be a clash. Why? Because right and wrong will clash. You can't just pretend that, the right is wrong or the wrong is right.
Yeah.
So we believe that this divine decree, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a system of how to live life. And if we're not living or able to live to that system, there's going to be conflict. So there's going to be, and conflict not in a violent sense, but there's going to be tension because you're not being true to your values. Your values are telling you that you need to operate a certain way. And yet, the law may not, be fitting that. So for example, if you close a company, this happens all the time. It's happened to me. You've had to close a company. You need to pay your debts. Now, that could take a very long time.
Yeah.
British law says you've liquidated. It's all over. You don't owe anybody anything. Islamically, I believe you owe it. You need to pay it.
But isn't it another thing as well? You follow the law of the land.
Yeah, but at what cost? Because there's following the law of the land refers to obeying the systems and not violating what's it called, the rules, right? For example, I don't park on double yellow lines. That's obeying the law of the land, right? That's like Islamically, am I sinful for parking on a double yellow? Well, no, not really. It's not an Islamic system that's implemented, but I'm not sinful for it. But I won't do it because it's like obeying, being harmonious with your host country, right? You're invested in this place, as you should be. So there isn't a thing of having to follow those rules, but you do your best to work within them.
Yeah,
that's the law of the land. But Islamic values are your system of life, is what you live according to. You don't just leave that and think it doesn't matter. Just because I live in the West doesn't mean that I can now, for example, steal.
Yeah,
you can't, right? Even if
drink and do drugs and stuff, and
I mean, people have contractual disputes.
Yeah.
So if I can win something from you contractually, is that okay, or is it wrong because I've taken something from you by deception? But I did it legally, but I deceived you. So Islamically, I couldn't do that, right? Because other things of Islamically, it's not allowed to have. We're surrounded by cameras. It's not allowed to spy on people.
Yeah.
So if you can't have a secret camera up, is it illegal? No, it's your premises. You want to put a camera up, you can. Islamically, you need to let people know there's a camera because that would be spying. Yeah. So there's many things which are Islamically, you're gonna not do that the law of the land would allow you to do, but doesn't mean you do it. So there's that conflict.
Yeah.
But the Islamic form of business is that you're following the rules. So no riba. You're not gonna cheat anybody. You pay fairly. You do all of these things that are gonna be part of the Islamic ethos of how you do things. On the other side, then you've got the capitalist way of doing it, which is about you. What can I make? Everything's for sale. How can I extract maximum value from this thing? But Islamically, you might not. You might think, okay, well, look, I don't need to extract every drop from this resource. I don't need to, to kill people in the process of working for me.
Absolutely.
There's no need for that. Islamically, you would take it a bit easier. Now, business, logic here would say that you're not getting the most out of your resources. And that might be true, that you're not extracting every last ounce, right? But it's still, you're going to get what you're going to get. So what are you motivated by?
True.
So if you see a member of staff lurking around, maybe not, fully engaged in their work, do you feel something of like, this guy's taken something from me? I'm paying him for his time and he's on his phone. How do you feel about that? Like, probably
that's a question. Is that a question for me?
Yeah,
all right. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, I just speak to them. Say, look, you've got things to do. Unless they're on their break or something, that's a different thing. But if they are on their phone in work time, then just a little slap on the wrist and say, look, there's things to be done. Because what happens is if one person's doing it, the second person's going to do it, the third, the fourth, and it just becomes a norm. And then in our trade, you need to be customer focused all the time. You can't be on the phone while you've got, you might be on the phone and you've got a customer at the till waiting and you don't know. So you have to be very alert. Yes, in your own time, do whatever you need to do. They have their fag breaks and whatnot, fine, whatever. Yeah. But when you're on the shop floor, you need to be very customer focused. And it's just a domino effect, isn't it? If one person does it, then other staff seem to be like, okay, I can do it. And then he will do it, she will do it. And before you know it, you get Google reviews. Oh, all the staff here in this shop, they're always on the phone. Do you know what I mean? It's just a domino. So it's always best to kind of keep certain limits. And yes, of course, you be fair but firm. At the end of the day, if your staff are not performing, then it's affecting the business. Yeah. And there's 16, 17, 20 people that work here who've got their livelihoods, they've got their risk written here. So, you kind of put everyone's earnings into jeopardy, and that's how I see it. So just a little tap on the wrist is fine. I don't think there's any issue with that.
So if the following week that same person's mother is ill, what do you do then?
Ask for a sick note. If you're not going to give me a sick note, then you need to come to work. No, on a serious note, look, these are things that you have to adjust to. If their mothers or anyone in their family is not well, then fine, take a couple of days off. You always have cover. Fine, not a problem. If there isn't a cover, then I'll come and do it myself. So I think it's one of those things that you have to understand. People have got lives outside of work as well. Yeah. And these are emergencies, you can't be, no, I don't care. If your mom's not well, work is work. And never been like that. And alhamdulillah, I think that's why we've been blessed with such a good team that 9 out of 10 times I'm not even here. Yeah. Just come in, show my face. I'll see you later. Everyone, you come in, they give you respect. Not like, oh shit, he's here. Oh bloody hell,
Exactly.
Nothing like that.
Exactly. See, look, if you lead with compassion, you get a huge amount of loyalty.
Oh, brilliant, yeah.
And that, I often try to look at that and think, why do I get that from people? What is it that I've had all through any of my businesses? Is loyalty has been very high up. And the thing that I think really builds that is you lead compassionately with them and you're part of their lives. If they have a problem, I view it as my problem. Yeah. I view it as we're on one team. Yeah. Right. So we're in this together. I'm not here to just extract value from you, and then when you have a problem, you're on your own. No. But if the business has a problem, it's all our problem. And so you don't do that. I think you instead lead in a way that, we're a family. You'll get a huge amount of loyalty from people. Yeah. And that years later, you're able to meet those people, still have good relationships with them. Not like they worked for you, so now you hate each other for life, or, they curse you outside of work, right? What would be, what kind of life would that be?
It's the worst thing ever. Yeah. Because, evil eye is real and it can break you within days. Yeah, it does. You can have the biggest business, but that one evil eye can just bring the whole thing down. Yeah. And it happens, it's a real thing.
We've seen it, right? And so you want a concept of, you want people's dua. Yeah. You don't want them to be, giving you bad dua or cursing you. Yeah. Right? You don't want that. Instead, and what that requires sometimes is you've got to swallow your pride. Sometimes you've got to be really patient and work with people in that way, that if they're going through something, be compassionate about it. Just understand that money's not everything. Okay, yes, you're going to lose something a little bit, of revenue you might lose. Like we were talking about risk, your risk is not reduced. Yeah. It's still the same. You could be harsh with this person and really give them a hard time, send them home miserable. That person goes home, takes it out on their family and, just causing misery in the world, right? For what gain? Are you going to have an increase in what you consume? Probably not, right? So you're going to just be the same anyway. So why be so cutthroat? That's always been my kind of my approach here, is you don't need to go too far. Just,
and you lose your values.
Yeah. And that's important because a lot of corporations talk about values. For Muslim businesses, values should be at the forefront. It's here's why we do these things. This is what we're about. And that should rub off on you. Like one of the things always makes me really happy is when people visit our business and they say, it's a very happy team you've got here. And I'm like, really? Because like all they've done is walk through, to the offices. But they've just picked up a vibe. That it's a happy team. People are smiling and laughing, and they're like, that it's a friendly place. But why is it friendly in that way? Is because we've constructed it to be like that. We don't want it to be a place that you hate being at.
Head down, just work.
You spend more time at work than you do at home.
Yeah.
And what if you're miserable the whole time?
Imagine you're home.
What kind of life? And then what kind of life is that, right?
Yeah.
You do a 40, 50-year career that you spent in misery because you thought that extracting value meant being really harsh and mean to everyone. A friend of mine was telling me about the harshest guy he knows, and this person runs this big production operation, and he said he just goes and swears at people, and he's like really attacks them and really is aggressive, and he goes and he goes, I've just been there and now I've come to you, and it's the complete opposite here, and he goes, I'm really seeing the difference, right? And I was like, what does that guy get from doing that?
Exactly.
What's he achieved? If he had happy staff, they'd work harder for him. I know this because I've had that. I've got staff in the Netherlands, I've got staff in Pakistan who I hardly ever see.
Yeah.
But I know that they work very hard because they feel that and sometimes they go above and beyond. Weekends, evenings, they'll just go and do things and I don't even know about it. Why do I have that? It's because they feel like it's their own.
Yeah.
Because it's not a value extraction exercise. And that's what colonialism was about. That's what capitalism is all about. Islamic forms of business aren't about that. It's not about, maximizing that benefit from something. That's not what we're about. Mm-hmm. You live according to your values. You want a happy society.
Talking about Pakistan and the staff in Pakistan, how difficult was it to set up your manufacturing plant in Pakistan? Now, for example, somebody like me, I wanted to do, obviously it takes time. How difficult, or was it easy to set up something and off it goes? Because I know I'm from Pakistan. We always hear about stories about this, that, the other. So how difficult was it for you to say, okay, fine, Pakistan it is. The whole world's out there. Why Pakistan?
Pakistan's obviously close to our hearts because our roots are from there, and also for me personally, we're from the Indian side of the border.
Okay.
So when Pakistan
at one point everyone was
made, but literally we had to cross, right? So 1947 they had to leave their homes and just come over to where we are now in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And so they came with nothing. And so the fact that they came with nothing and they had to build a life again, and they worked very hard, our grandfather's generation, and my father's generation, they had to build themselves up. And that might have ended up in us being in Britain, but we have to kind of owe that debt to that land that we're from and think that we need to do something for this place. So we were always brought up with that mentality of we think about that place. And so when you have that motivation, you're willing to take the pain. Most people who are making an investment decision aren't willing to take pain because that's not their motivation, right? They want to maximize their return on what they're doing. So if you're doing that, Pakistan's not the place because it's going to be a bit harder. And it is. There's complications, right? It's a developing country. So you're not going to have, the law in place the way you would need it. The ease of business isn't there. There's a lot of those kind of issues. I don't need to list them because everybody knows and has experienced and has heard the horror stories. But I would suggest the alternative to that then is that you go in sincerely into what you do. And, I was reading a post this morning that said, do you do a conscious Bismillah before you do something? Just really between you and God, I'm doing this thing in the name of Allah before you start. Do you do that, or do you just start and kind of it's a bit of a second afterthought that I'm just going to mention it? Or do you really connect and take your time to just really think it before you start something? then you've involved Allah in what you're doing. So you're going to have barakah in that thing, right? So you adopt that mindset into Pakistan and you'll take the pain. And the pain can come in all sorts of forms. People's culture is different. People have very different ways of doing business sometimes, and there's a lot of infrastructure issues, and there's very unique Pakistani problems, right? Like the unique ones can be literally like staff absences, can be things like my next door neighbor's auntie's not well, so I've got to go to hospital to visit her.
Because it's a very integrated culture, especially in smaller towns and villages. Yeah. You might be taking someone's uncle to hospitals or somewhere that you need to go, and if you were in England, you wouldn't do that. We
can't relate to that, right? Yeah. So we're very, very British in that sense, because we don't relate. But what you don't do is impose your mentality and culture on them.
Yeah,
it works for them. Is how things are there. When we're there, we even start doing similar things.
Yeah.
So, going to the bank in the UK is a half an hour job, right? You go to the bank, you go do what you need to do, you're back.
Yeah.
In fact, you do it online now, so you don't even need that to do that. In Pakistan, that's a day job.
Yeah.
You're gone for the day.
Longer.
Yeah.
You're gone for the week.
You're gone for some time.
Yeah. So
then when we hear back this person's away from work because he went to the bank, the old me would laugh. What do you mean? He went to the bank and got locked in the vault? What? I don't get it, right? Like, what do you mean? But because I've done business there now for so long, right? I get it, right? So I'm like, okay, right, fine. So I suppose the spirit is you go with the flow.
Yeah.
You roll with the punches there and say, okay, fine. This is how it works here. There's going to be a meeting, for example. Like I'm a short attention span, what's it called? ADD kind of person, right? So in the middle of a meeting, suddenly the call's cut off. I'm not happy. I want to get on this thing done. I've got eight more meetings to do today. My time's valuable. But is it their fault that the electricity cut out, right?
Yeah.
It's not really, right? So you be patient. Okay, I'll answer some messages and stuff, and while I'm waiting for them to reconnect and come back online, it took a couple of minutes. Fine. Now I could spend the next 5 minutes having a go at them, saying, where did you go? What do you mean? This meeting's important. Why have you wasted my time? Just roll with it. And that's what Pakistan requires. Other than that, we're based in a small town that has its own advantages. In a small town, you don't get the same kind of problems. You don't have, government authorities coming out to hassle you for bribes and these kind of things. They leave kind of small towns alone. So that's probably been a good advantage for us being out there. We were kind of left to our own devices. Maybe one of the other really important things, and sorry to say this, is that don't work with family. And we didn't. And so our teams there are all employed. Yeah. We gave jobs on merit, not on who's related to us. Yeah. That's, I think, often asking for disaster, because you need local representatives. So you end up going to family and saying, okay, well, this cousin's free, or that nephew's available. But
the problem is then they expect favors and they think that they are doing you a favor.
Yeah.
And it's a domino effect, and we all been there, and you think, what have I just done? I was trying to set something up, but this backfired.
Look, we've both come from family businesses, and so we understand what that feels like. You can't. There's so much good to it, but then on the other side, you can't then say, look, I need this thing done.
Yeah, exactly.
Just sort it, right?
Yeah, like you would if that was anyone else. Well, okay, I need this done, and all right, it'll be done. But with the family, it's a different approach. You have to go through your aunties, your uncles, and your. Or
you got to be compromising, and you got to kind of let little things go and say, look, well, it's kind of like, okay, well, I'll have to wait until he feels like doing it.
But businesses don't work
like that, right? So we've always had staff. Yeah. And so staff are accountable. Yeah. They're based on merit. Promotions happen on merit. We don't take people because someone said, oh, well, could you employ my son? We're like, we'll assess him if he passes our criteria and our tests. Yeah. And, you may, yes, sure. But like, not just because he's your son. And that can cause offense.
It's not a cricket team.
But it does cause offense. It causes offense that, people say, you're employing so many people in the town. Why are you not employing,
My
people who
son.
are related to you.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, because it's got to be on merit. Otherwise, you don't build a good organization. So that's a thing of operating in Pakistan. You find good people, and I purely recruit on values.
Yeah.
I don't care actually about the work skills, because
you can always learn.
You can learn
always
those, but you can't then transplant values into people. That's hard to do. So we go through like a 4 interview process for everyone who works for us. There's a lot of stages, and I have to personally meet anyone kind of fairly senior. I have to meet them. I've just done 2 this morning, in fact. And, so I need to see, and I need to look someone in the eye and kind of really see what they're about. And I'll ask them questions that are just nothing to do with business, right? I'll ask them things about family and, what they're looking to do in the next 10 years and what kind of life they lead and what they're most proud of having done in their community.
You can tell by someone's family life how they're going to treat your business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the littlest things of like, you ask someone what life's like at their current job. What do you love? What do you hate? It tells you everything. You don't have how they think. Often when people say things like, oh, my current workplace is toxic, usually means they're toxic. And, that's usually, the thing of like other people will be very tight-lipped about that kind of thing. They'll be like, I just want a new challenge. Can I get out there and, do other things? They haven't got time to criticize the past and say, well, okay, I've been working there and I hated every minute. And they don't need counseling.
Yeah.
They're very much like future focused. So combining all those kind of factors for Pakistan and the willingness to take the pain. So you just take it in your stride. Sometimes I just put my camera off during a meeting with Pakistan and just laugh for a bit, and just put it back on.
With a massive smile on your face.
And be like, go on, carry on, tell me more. Right? Because it's just, some things are just laughable. It's very silly, right? And you think, really, you want to spend 10 minutes of my life talking about this little problem that's just weird. It's okay. Like, I know my mission's important. I want to create 1,000 jobs in my hometown. I want to do that, inshallah, in my lifetime. Yeah. So I work towards it. And I get to a number, go backwards a bit, and then I get to a number.
That's business, isn't it?
And you keep going, right? And I'll take the pain for that. I'll take punishment. It's okay, because I've chosen that mission. They didn't choose it. It's not their fault that I chose this mission.
Yeah,
that's my own personal thing, right? I've decided what good can I do in the world? Oh, I think I could do this. I'm entrepreneurial. I'm across different countries and I'm across different industries. I can probably get them to stand on their own feet and have pride in what they do, not have to look at anyone else. When someone needs medical treatment in Pakistan, my dad has a line of people outside the house, every week, who need money. Can you pay for this operation? Can you do this? Can you? And bless him, he'll do things like, he'll send them to the best hospital, and I'll be like, this was a person who's really desperate. You could have helped more people if, you sent them to a cheaper place. Why did you send them to where you would have gone?
Yeah.
And he's like, I look at it as, where would I have sent my mother? I wouldn't send her to the cheap one. I would have sent her to the best one. So if you're going to give charity, give it in the best way. Don't give like people minimal.
Yeah, true.
And Allah will give you more. So that's a thing that's very, widespread in our family. Our grandfather was like this. Our uncles were like this. My brothers now, they have a Feed the Million project going in Pakistan. So thousands of people get fed, every week out there, and they're trying to now extend that to do multiple days. It's just a way of being. You don't look at it as, what can I get? Like we were saying 10 years ago, I had the same lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so, okay, well, I don't wish for more. I don't want like to be able to do what exactly? I can wear this £30 jumper, or I can wear a £300 jumper. They're both going to keep me equally warm. Yeah. So what's the point? And I feel like you draw a line under that and say, that's not what I'm chasing. You want to chase it? Good luck. I'm not stopping you, but I don't want to. I want to do good in the world. There's no point dying the richest man in the graveyard.
Yeah.
That's not what we're here for. I think that with Western business is the problem, the conflict here. I'm not here to make as much money for me as possible. That's not what my life aim is.
Very true. Very true. That was deep. You made me think there, you know. That was deep.
I thought I shut you down then.
Yeah, you did. Not many people can do that.
No. But we do have to reflect, right? Because there's a lack of reflection, right? In business, where we're taught to go and maximize. So we go to do that. And then where's the end of it?
There is no end.
Like I moved house to Edgbaston about 10 years ago. And so I was renting a house in Edgbaston, and I've come from like the hood, right? So I've gone out there being me and living there, and all my neighbors are multimillionaires and, you know, very wealthy, and none of them were happy. I couldn't see like a single happy person. They were all miserable. They all had problems. They all had, like, you know, just all sorts of sadness in their lives, and so money didn't buy happiness. And, you know, that was a lesson. Another big lesson for me was I used to work weekends. And I remember like going to work on a Sunday, and my daughters were little at the time and said, you know, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to work. And they said, like, you know, why? It's a Sunday. And I was like, it's the weekend. And I was like, oh, so then daddy can buy you nice toys, and he can, like, you know, whatever you want, he can get it for you. And they said, we don't want that. We want you. I never worked a weekend ever again. I thought, what am I chasing?
Exactly.
I'm out there thinking that I'm going to make money or more money. That's what I'm going to work for, right?
Yeah. It's not for yourself.
And what will it do? I'll be able to buy them what? Because it's not the thing that's not what they're looking for.
They want time.
And especially in this country, you've got the education system, you've got lots of, you know, values being floated around that are in conflict with our beliefs.
Yeah.
You need to give your kids and family time. And that can work on the opposite scale of trying to build businesses. They take time and effort. So you've got to be able to seek the barakah in the 9 to 5, in the Monday to Friday, in the enough time, you know, that you can still have time for other things. And that's a hard balance to maintain. I wouldn't say I'm brilliant at it, but, you know, it's...
Sometimes you got to make the sacrifices.
Yeah.
But like he says, you know, weekend, at least you know, okay,
yeah,
it's a no-no for the weekend.
Well, like I live by my calendar. So my calendar is populated with meetings and you know, everything that I need to do is all in there. And so one of the first things to start with is put family time in first.
Yeah.
Into your calendar and say, well, that time's for my son, that time's for my daughters, that time's with my wife. That's like, you know, your family time is planned in. And then around that, you've got all the work stuff going on, which will get hectic and crazy. But if you don't give them some time in there first, this constant calendar creep, because there'll be all sorts of new meetings coming in, that, you know, new opportunities come, you meet someone, when can I meet you? Okay, I'm available, you know, tonight. And that's just time you just took from your kids.
True.
And gave it to someone who you don't even know, maybe don't even want to know, or maybe you shouldn't know. But you've gone off and given them that time really happily. You think you're brilliant because you're meeting people, you're networking. But at the end, you know, and a lot of people say this, right? At the end, who's going to be at your funeral? You know, what matters is after you die, your accounting is finished, except for the charity you gave that's perpetual. Sadaqah Jariyah is going to be continual. So if someone drinks from a water well that you paid for, you get the reward of that. And your kids, like, you know, what they do and what they,
kids,
you know, that counts for you. So you got to invest into them much more so than your property portfolio isn't going to do anything for you. And that's a big problem within our communities.
See, I was going to say that is because, like, a lot of people are so busy out there trying to afford a lifestyle that they can't afford, right? So they've got a big house, they've got 3-4 Mercedes cars, whatever, and they're breaking their backs 14, 15, 16, 17 hours a day. They're not spending time with their children. Now their children have grown up. They've picked up habits of streets because you weren't there to teach them the way. And now it's become a problem when your son or your daughter comes home with somebody that they're not supposed to come home with, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
So who's in fault of that? You or your children? Because obviously you weren't your children. It's just that you weren't there to kind of guide them through. You were like your daughter said, they want you, not, the presence.
Mm-hmm.
And they were trying to create this life for the children. Obviously he was doing the best he wanted. He thought he was doing, but taking that time out for your family, spending that time with your family, it's far more greater than having a nice car outside your drive or a big house. Because once your children are raised by the society, then there's no going back. I was talking to my friend the other day, he's from the masjid, and he was saying there's so many people who are turning away from Islam because we don't see that. Right? We only see the people that are coming into Islam, but we don't see people going away from this. So many Muslims that have gone away because their fathers are nowhere to be seen. They're too busy in the worldly matters and this, and it's just like mind-boggling thing. And I was just like, wow, subhanAllah, it's just amazing.
And it's like there's a fork in the road.
Yeah.
And you've got people who are becoming, more true to their values and practicing Islam, really well and coming back to that. And then you've got the other side where you're losing people completely. And it's just scary. And it's in every family we're seeing that happening. And, there's very two extremes, it seems.
Yeah.
And what do you do about it, right? Because there's the aspect of time, but you need to have knowledge with that time. So like for me, like when my kids were starting school, I spent time with them on proof of God and understanding, from logic and from reasoning, understanding Islam fully, so that they have a strong foundation and, a basis on which to live their lives. And they were tested on that at school immediately.
Really?
Like, year 7, they've gone in, and immediately teachers will say things like, obviously there's no God. It's all fiction.
Wow.
And as if it's like, established truth. And so they were able, because of this time we spent, to be able to say, well, actually, hold on, let's have a debate on it then. Let's discuss it. Let's discuss whether God exists or not.
They didn't like that.
Oh, they hated it, right? But then the thing is that you need to be equipped. We're not equipping our kids. Why? We're not equipped ourselves.
True.
So often you've got parents who are able to do that with their kids, and so I work on one of the dawah teams in Birmingham, and in that team, we often referred people who are from Muslim families who've got doubts or questions, and they're not profound, they're not particularly intellectual, very deep questions or anything, but it's just that their parents can't answer them. But why is that? What are they doing with their time? Why are they not studying? Why are they not reading? This is that. Like reading is probably one of the biggest problems we've got in our community.
I can't read, man.
Right?
Well, I can read.
Audiobooks.
But yeah, now I've moved over to audiobooks because I have a very short span. I'll read a paragraph and I'll be like, okay, 400 pages. Nah, yeah, happening.
Yeah. No, so look, I'd like to read more, but I do read a fair bit. But then I probably have like 20 books on my desk at the moment that I'm behind. So I'd be buying
I've got
them.
2 and I'm behind on them.
So
and 2 are
we're
here.
both behind, right? But so long as you're adding to your knowledge, and you should be inquisitive, you should be learning more. We need to be learned people, not like the command in Islam is to read, right? So
first thing,
where is it? Why is it missing in our lives? And we've lost it. We're spending time on TikTok rather than on learning, right? So that then permeates through all of our society. We're then passing that on to our kids as a culture. They're not equipped to be able to deal with Western society. Our own parents, like my parents, were not born in this country. So for them, they weren't equipped to prepare me. And
plus, it was a very, very different time back then.
Yeah,
See, like now, this whole agenda of the Vogue is just rapidly just going through schools and everywhere. If you don't accept it, you lose your job, and if you don't accept this, this will happen and that will happen. And frankly, that shits me up. My wife's a teacher. She was a teacher. Well, she is a teacher, but not anymore. She's with the little one. And she would say, no, it's not like this and I'm like that. I said, look, okay, fine, fair enough. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there was no conversation about this whole agenda.
Yeah.
Now fast forward, now it's in some schools and, you know, it's kind of more accepted. 5 years forward, imagine that. It's going to be, we can't have your son in our school because he doesn't accept this. You know, it's going to be like that. I mean, not that, but...
I have this whole different attitude to this. And you know, it's unpopular opinion perhaps, right? But my kind of, my thinking here is, I'm going to do what I need to do. And I don't care about the system.
Yeah.
I do that in Pakistan. I don't care. Put all the rocks in my way. I'm going to keep going. No electricity, I'll put solar panels on. No, what's it called? No sun coming out, you know, in winter maybe. I'll put diesel generators in, right? Broadband's a problem. I've got a connection from every company that there is, you know, like next is Starlink, you know, satellite version has got to come in. But I will keep going. You're not going to stop me.
Yeah.
And I feel like the same here in these issues is I'm going to educate my kids.
That is a must.
I'm going to prepare them for society.
100%.
They're going to go to the best universities. They're going to have, you know, like what they're going to have access to all knowledge and whatever they need. But I don't need to worry about the fact that this agenda is there. I know I can't really stop it. Yeah. I know that there's not really, you know, it's not going to be easy for us to impose anything within a society that's comes from a different ideology. But you're not going to stop me. I'm not going to hide from it. I'm not going to say, well, okay, I'm not going to let the kids out. I'm not going to let my daughters get educated, you know, to the highest levels. I will, because I need them to be equipped to be able to do this. And so I literally like just look at it as like my son's at school now, and he was like, look, you know, they're giving us lessons on LGBT, and they were like, you know, Dad, they were trying to. He came home and said, like, Dad, they're trying to like make us, you know, be like them. And I said, is it working? And he said, no, you know, we know what we are. We know what we're about. We have our belief system. So we're equipped, right? Why? We've discussed all this before.
I need those textbooks that you've given to yourself. So I need to, because I need some of those.
You need to write them, I think, right? So you know, like I think what it comes down to is that you take things on.
Yeah, head on.
With courage.
Yeah.
And, you know, and with determination. And we don't then have this thing of like, I want to run away from here. I want to get away from these problems. You're like, okay, fine. What if? And I literally had this debate with a non-Muslim recently, where he was like, "Would you leave this country?" And I said, economically, yes. But for my people, I'm staying. And he said, "What do you mean by that?" And I was like, "Well, for me, if people like us leave, then we're leaving our sheep to the wolves, because we're economically able, we're intellectually able to, and we're confident, and we're brought up here, born here. We understand how to operate. If we all abandon ship and leave, you know, the people who are less equipped to have to deal with it, that wouldn't be fair. So I have to stay. I need to be here to be a good influence around, you know, the people around me, and to be active in my community, in my society. That's my job. That's not an optional thing of like, well, you know, my spare time, I give a half an hour to this thing. No, that's a central mission. You've got to be able to protect your community. That might require education. It might require, you know, just giving people work experience. It could be that you're just giving people mentorship. Whatever form it takes, you go out there, you do it. You don't view it as you're doing anyone a favor. You're doing your duty. Your job is to protect the community and society around you. That's not just Muslim society, that's all of society. So if we're engaged in feeding the homeless of Birmingham, that's not a Muslim thing of like, we need to feed Muslims. Like, that's like irrelevant.
Yeah, it's more of a humanity thing, isn't it?
You need to be a human first. And so to do that, like, you know, you need to be engaged in society. We don't insulate ourselves. We don't get behind gated houses and just go and hide and say, well, okay, look, I just don't want to engage with anyone. And that happens. And amongst business people, this happens a lot, is you make money. As soon as you've done that, you cut yourself off from society. I meet Muslims all the time and Pakistanis all the time who say, I don't deal with my own community. I don't do business with them, and I don't deal with them. So, okay, that's not good. It's not something to be proud of. They're like, yeah, but I can't be bothered with the problems, and I just don't like to deal with them. Yeah, but then that's the more reason to deal with them then, isn't it? Because you need to actually influence them. How do you influence somebody if you don't engage? If you just cut yourself off and say, I just don't do business with them, I'm better than that. How are you helping them? How are you improving their lives? You're not, and I say this a lot, is when I put out a job ad for minimum wage versus I put a job ad out for 26k, 28k a year, nothing special, but just any kind of that kind of level of job. Pakistani Muslims of Birmingham, there are hundreds of thousands of us in this city, don't apply. They don't apply for that job. The very next day I put a minimum wage job up and I get so many applications. I have to shut the ad down in a couple of hours because we can't process that many applications. Minimum wage, brilliant, they want to apply for it. But any other kind of a job, we're lacking some sort of self-confidence. So I often find that in management, I have to put a minimum wage job ad out, interview the best candidates and give them the other job and say, I think you could do it. Right? I've done that so many times because they won't apply for it. They're lacking confidence. And why is that? It's because we're not engaging with them as a community. And for my generation, we owe a debt to society. We need to be engaging with young people and encouraging them to be the best that they can be.
Definitely, yeah.
And it doesn't cost anything. It's just literally put yourself out there. 100%.
And that's very important, isn't it? It's encouraging the youngsters of today, because it's like I said before, the influence out there being raised on the streets is a lot faster than myself or you behind a desk putting a job out. Fine. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. But the whole point is to encourage them to do better jobs than what you've actually put out there. Yeah. And that's what we need. And it's really nice to see people like yourself who are actually doing that and have that mindset of improving someone else's life rather than your own, because everybody wants to improve their own life. That's standard. But to think about others in different parts of the world and setting up factories where you could have had it anywhere to benefit your business, but you chose to take the pain, like you said, and go through that hardship of, okay, you know what, it's gonna be today, tomorrow, or whenever. People will change and they'll follow suit, and rather than being dependent on other people, they'll be independent.
Yeah.
And this is how I look at it in charity as well, because there's a lot of people out there who are always just giving. I've always thought, how much charity do people give?
Huge.
Billions. But why do the consumer only gets a piece of bread at the end of it and a bit of oil? Because I've been there. I went to Syria myself on a deployment. I liked it and I didn't like it as well, because yes, you kind of giving out the food. Okay, cool. But then you've got tons of cameras everywhere taking videos, photos. Like, okay, this is a bit weird. Do you know what I mean? Because if you're trying to do good, it should be just without the camera. And I kind of realized that when I came back and I was looking at the pictures, and I was just like, I wouldn't want to do this again. I wouldn't. I'll support someone, but I wouldn't want to go out there myself because, take a picture with somebody who wants food. That's
doesn't
not
feel
nice.
Right, does it?
It doesn't. And at that time, it was okay, whatever. But when I came back, I realized that, and I was like, I wouldn't do that ever again. I wouldn't go. I'll just support someone, give them £50, £100 a month. Fine, do what you got to do.
I think the bit missing there, and there's a whole topic of what social media is, and kind of showing this kind of stuff, and there's good in it because you need to popularize sometimes. Of
awareness,
course. It is needed as well. But what's your intention? Only you know.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to check your intention when you're doing things and say, look, why am I really doing it? What is there something in my heart of I want people to see me as charitable? I want them to see me as good. If it is, you just lost the reward of that whole thing.
Yeah.
You just wasted your time. In fact, you could be even sinful, right? For having done it.
Yeah.
So that's very like, good self-awareness to know, right, how that is. On the other side, though, on the way of giving charity, it's like, you're from a big family.
Yeah.
And so just the zakat that your family contributes to society is going to be a huge number.
Yeah.
But if you were to organize that, just you in your family were to organize it, so that you go find, and charity starts at home, right? You look for someone who's related to you. That could be a third cousin. It could be someone from, the distant family.
Yeah.
Find the poorest person in your family, and as a family, set them up.
Yeah.
If you did that every year, you were doing that, what happens? They themselves become zakat payers.
Yeah.
You just lifted your community. You just essentially are removing them from poverty. But we don't do it. We give out zakat individually. We don't really talk about it. We don't like to talk about what the amount is this year. We don't like to be open, and actually plan it like we do our businesses.
This is what my point was. Instead of giving that bread or something to someone, why don't they organize like a little bread making business for that community?
Mm-hmm.
So where they can make their own bread, share it with it. That's my vision of, then they become independent. Yeah. You just kind of overlook it, support that business then.
It's such an interesting thing that you say that.
Exactly.
There is another side to that though, that you often are going in with a Western mindset and you're displacing the existing bread maker with the one that you just installed, who you subsidize the bakery.
No, but
right?
get him involved, because he'll have the infrastructure. He'll know how to make the bread.
Yeah, if you know about him, right? So, so often, like, because we're flying in, with a solution that isn't really, within that culture, right? So like, I was telling you this earlier that, like, I thought about what shall I do here in Pakistan, in my village, for example, and I thought it's going to be a hospital I need. I should make a hospital. People are always suffering in some way. I should build this place. And I spoke to some doctors and they said, don't do that. And I said, why not? They said, you're not from the medical profession, so you're not going to run it. So you don't really know what you're doing with it.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to employ those people. Those people are probably gonna start charging the patients, even though you think it's free treatment.
True.
And then the cost of treatment per patient is so high, you're going to always be struggling to fund the hospital. So you're going to be turning people away, which you're going to find heartbreaking. So there's going to be those issues as well. And then it's not a lack of hospitals that's the problem. It's a lack of income to pay for the treatment that people need. So diabetics can't
my
afford.
bread bakery was a better idea then, isn't it?
That doesn't buy them insulin.
True.
Right? So you've got diabetics who can't afford insulin, who then suffer, who are having limbs amputated, who then, whole family suffering because you've got... How do you fix that? And the only route I could see was that you need to raise the income level.
Yeah.
How do you do that? And then that then is education.
Yeah.
And what does it cost to educate somebody in today's day and age? You can learn so much just from YouTube.
I was talking to my new neighbors saying that, like, you have to be very unwilling to learn if you can't do anything in this day and age, because everything is just there at your fingertips.
So true.
And if you still can't put a shelf on a wall,
I can't. So
you, my friend, are so unwilling. I'll send you a link on how to put a shelf.
I know how to, I just don't want to. So I think there's a problem there. I always look at it as like I can pay someone to do this thing, right?
I always look at it. My wife always tells me, just do it yourself. Save that 50 quid. And I says, that 50 quid is going to go to someone's household. It's going to buy them bread, right? It'll run someone's... That's the life cycle, isn't it?
Right, that's good.
Oh, I want a big garden. I said, you can have a big garden, but I'm not doing no gardening because I don't want to do it. I'll get a gardener to come and do it. Why are you going to spend £100? I said, well, he's going to eat as well.
Yeah, you're creating jobs.
And she's like, I was like, all right, anyway. But Zhagum, you know what? It's been a pleasure.
Same. Thanks
honestly,
for having me.
It's been a really, really good conversation. We can sit here and have a 4 or 5 hour long conversation, but I think an hour is a lot for now.
Yeah.
But definitely we'll do another podcast as well. This is very interesting. You're a very interesting person.
Well, thank you
very
very much.
humble, very knowledgeable. And I usually don't say that.
Okay.
All of this to many people.
I don't usually hear that.
But no, it's been interesting. You're a man of many businesses, and they all require knowledge. So, mashallah, you're doing really well. You should be proud of yourself.
No, Jazakallah khair. I'm really glad you're doing this podcast, because we've got a lot of stories within our community and a lot of good people that we're gonna not ever hear from.
Yeah.
And it's something that I argue with people about, and because I say, look, you're a great person doing great things, please go and talk about it.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I don't want people to see me. I don't want to get
That's
nazar.
a problem in our community.
It is, isn't it? And I would say, like, look, if you don't tell people, these thoughts, these ideas die with you.
Yes.
So go out there. If you either write a book, probably the best thing you could do, write a book, right? But if not, then at least go and talk to others about it, because it might just plant a seed. And it was the same for me. Someone planted some seed somewhere that affected me, that made me want to change my life.
Yeah.
And go down this route. And who knows who might hear this, and you're making that happen. And so many, great people you're bringing on. That's just, you're just planting a seed somewhere. May Allah reward you for doing that.
Alhamdulillah. And that was the whole point, because originally when I started the podcast, it was just about mental health, fitness, health. But then a lot of people wanted to know about business, and why don't you get so and so on. Then I was like, okay, let's talk about fitness, business, and mindset. Let's cover everything. And Fitpod could be fit mindset, fit anything. If you got a good fit mindset, you could do anything. You can achieve anything. So it works. Everything works. Alhamdulillah, and that was the whole point, to inspire someone from your journey. If I can, or if this episode can inspire someone to do something good, I'm a happy person. That's my reward. Done. And that was the whole ethos of this thing as well. So, but inshallah, see if it works, it works. And I've had some good feedback. People have enjoyed it. People have liked it. And people have made some changes through my fitness journey and through other people's fitness journeys. And that was the whole point, So just getting that message across. And alhamdulillah.
Good stuff. Just keep it up.
But thank you very much for your time. May Allah bless you with everything else that you're doing, everything in the future, and all your great ideas. And we'll definitely catch up soon. And I'll come and set yours up as well.